beautiful co-creators. I'm Wieteke Koolhof from Design for Awareness, and I'm here with Kendra Jonas.
Hi, it's so good to be here. Thank you for having me on your show. Thank you.
Oh, and thank you for being here and for making time for this beautiful interaction. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Kendra is a channeler, just like me, and we spoke before, and we discovered that we had a lot of things in common, and well, basically, really felt super enthusiastic to make a video series. So here we are, and this is the first one, so we're both very excited about it.
Yeah.
So Kendra, would you like to tell us some more about yourself? Like for yourself, how did the channeling adventure, just to call it that way, how did it begin for you?
Yeah. It was a gradual process, actually. My experiences started when I was 22 years old with some visitations from the Greys, and I was part of the hybrid program with them, and it was a very frightening time and very confusing time. This was back in 1992, so there was no internet back then. Not a lot of books were published about extraterrestrials, at least that I was aware of. I mean, this was all new to me, so it took me by surprise, those visits. But it set me on a tailspin of doing research, of seeking, asking questions, and no matter how much I didn't want to have visits by the Greys because it frightened me so much, it just kept happening. There was no stopping this thing. And I learned later that I was part of this hybrid program where they're basically taking DNA material from those of us who are selected, or we actually choose this. It's a collective agreement where we are helping hybridize a new race of beings. They're hybrid children, and they're not only being born off planet with the Greys, but also there's hybrid children like what we know as star seeds or indigo children that are born here today,
Mm-hmm.
and their DNA is just slightly altered. So
Mm-hmm.
the Greys and other extraterrestrials are genetically manipulating our DNA when we're pregnant, with our children. And we find out that after they're born, they have these tremendous gifts and abilities. A lot of these children are more psychic. They come here knowing and remembering star languages and things like that. So the bodies are being created to be able to house these higher evolved souls. And
Mm-hmm.
that's basically what the Greys have been doing all along, is that
Mm-hmm.
they're geneticists. But a lot of people don't know what's going on, and so they fear all of this stuff, the abduction thing, and they say it's against their will and all of this. And
Mm-hmm.
to our conscious mind, who has no memory or recollection about the agreements we make with them, that's true. People don't know what's going on, and it is frightening.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how my thing started, was with that. And then eventually I became to have a relationship, a clairaudient relationship with higher dimensional beings who are not physical, but they refer to themselves as like our spirit guides. They're basically vibrating at such a high rate that we can't perceive them physically in the third dimension like we
Mm-hmm.
can the Greys.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm at a point now where I'm having guidance and clairaudient communication with these other beings, and they are they're linked to the fifth dimension or higher, and as well as Bashar's group, the Asasani, they're linked to that, and the other hybrids
Uh-huh.
that are here to there. A lot of people are getting messages and information to share from this group of beings, and you're one of them that I find
Yes.
out. So meeting you has been such a wonderful gift.
Yes, yes, it has been.
I'd
Thank
like to
you.
hear your story, how you started as well with all this.
Okay, oh yeah. Well, how old were you? Just a little bit curious about some details for yourself. How
Mhm.
old were you when you felt the visitations began for you?
I was 22 when I had the conscious awareness of what was happening. And
Yeah.
before that, in my early childhood, there were some things, but I didn't have the conscious memory until later.
Right. So your memories were brought back. Did you do hypnotherapy or something?
No, it was more like in the dream state. And when it was time for me to remember, then they allowed me
Um,
to remember.
and then you realized, oh, that's how that and that what happened then, which seemed very vague, is now fitting into the whole.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
exactly.
Yeah, I know that kind of like I call them time capsule messages. It's like I think it's still happening for me, and I think for everybody, because we come into this life, as I understand it, with all this. We agreed to look ourselves off of all this beautiful source information, because that's part of the game we're playing here on this magnificent earth.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of these memories, like you are regaining them now about your earlier childhood experiences, are like time capsules. They're there, the information is there, but it's just waiting until you're ready to receive it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of how I
It
feel. But yeah.
it was like that with past life memories too, because
Uh-huh.
I didn't even know that reincarnation existed, or whether I believed in it or not at a certain point. But then once the Greys started visiting me, they wanted me to understand, what my lives were before. So they kind of took me down this time area and back in time. It was like I literally revisited some of those times in my past
Right,
lives
right.
and got the memories again from that, because it's our soul that remembers. It's not our conscious brain, because our brain is only, our physical mind can only remember this reality. But it was fascinating. And then later, I meet people in my life that were reincarnating with me again, and I could see the karma patterns, and everything just made so much sense.
Yeah,
As far as even when I experienced difficulties in life, it was like I could tell what was being replayed and needed to be played out again, to kind of heal and repair the karma
right.
loop that was happening. So,
Yeah, yeah. Oh, there's so many interesting topics just right there. Um, yeah, wow.
yeah.
As I understand it, like you, I brought in more multiple themes in this life, because, but of course they are overlapping and they synchronize very beautifully. And so for me, I must have thought that it would benefit me greatly to have very vivid interactions with the with the visitations starting very early. So my first
Mhm.
memories were from 3 years old, and the beings came in all kinds of ways to really wake me up. So I understand, like you, that we make this decision ourselves on a higher level, because
Yeah.
beforehand people are still asking me, just a little sidetrack, they're like, why would you say yes to something like that, still from the
Mhm.
rational part. And
Right.
they showed me that when I made the agreement, I got to see what it would potentially lead to. So when on a soul level you see how incredibly potent and full of love this whole hybridization program really is, and how
Mhm.
much it can serve our planet and our future and
Oh, yeah.
humanity,
Oh, yeah.
there is
Mm.
no shadow of a doubt in you when you are on this soul level, like to say, oh no, thank you, I don't want to be a part of that
Right.
magnificent, super amazing thing.
I know, exactly. Exactly.
And the courage is that you trust as a soul, and of course you always do. There's no not trust there, that
Mhm.
you will be able to cope with it, like your rational mind, your very
Mhm.
limited vision as a human being down here will
Right.
maybe freak out because of everything that's happening, and I definitely went there like you. There were moments that I was
Yeah.
like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And but now I can see, I'm so happy, I for every single experience, and I can see how the fear actually, since for me it was also quite young, and this is so funny, you were 22 in 92
Mhm.
and I was 12 in 92, and
Uh-huh.
and we both were really aware of the interactions at that moment, and
Mhm.
we were both really facing the situations that came up for us because of that. So my personal experience is that it made me move through facing my fears very quickly,
Mhm.
because you're so much confronted even with your own sanity, whether that's in check,
Mhm.
and to stay standing in your center and to stay in a loving and compassionate way for yourself and others.
Mhm.
I mean, this was beautiful education when I
You're
look back at
so
it.
right. Yeah, yeah, you're right. And then what people think is, well, the Greys are so harsh, or they're emotionless, because we're sitting here pleading with them, please don't abduct me. This is scary, and they're not responding the way we want. There's like not that heartfelt kind of connection, but it's because you're right. I mean, we have to have so much fear that it causes us to stop and go within because there was nobody outside of myself that I could really go to and
Yeah,
try to get that comfort. It had to
exactly.
come from a knowing that I was going to be okay. It had to come from going outside of that, the experience, and finding out what my soul agreements were. What is the whole purpose of them for doing this? I had to dig really deep to get the answers because that was the only way I was going to make peace with this, was to
Yeah,
really find out on my own. And it is a wonderful lesson, way to help somebody evolve, is to just you know, um, get them to move, get them to shift themselves, because
yeah,
nobody is going to hold our hand, and help us evolve and expand. We have to do that by becoming more empowered in ourselves and by being really open,
yeah.
to the information coming in. And
Yeah, yeah, because when you lock yourself in and you don't let it flow, that's the whole lesson, right? I mean, you probably went a very similar path in that aspect as well. If you don't let it flow, also the beautiful reflections that might come to you can't be let in.
yeah, very
So
true.
that's really what I had to learn about when I was just starting to step out with all of this, which is still rather recent, only a few years ago. I started looking online for star seeds and people with similar stories
Hmm.
just by Googling it. And is there
Yeah.
anybody around me that I can talk about this with?
Right. That's how I
Wow.
felt too. Like it was just like I was really felt, very alone in all of this.
Uh
And
huh.
but by having that experience, it really helps you go to that next step of asking then outside of yourself or to your
Yeah.
higher self.
Yes.
That aloneness is so important in this process. And if it wasn't for that and surrendering the fear, I know I wouldn't have this relationship with Melody, my guide right now, where I have a totally clairaudient communication. She can come right
Yes.
through anytime I have a question,
Wow.
and she's helping so many other people, and that just wouldn't be possible if I had blocks, or if I told myself that I'm crazy and this isn't real. If I shut that door, there wouldn't be a connection, because they honor our free will.
Yeah.
So if we're not asking for it and open to it, then
Yeah.
it can't be there.
Yeah.
So we have to
Exactly.
do the work to get to
Yeah.
that point.
And we have to find a place within ourselves that is self-confident and trusting and loving towards what's going on, because I was afraid of my dreams for a very long time, or not so much the dreams. Like at 23 I sought some help, actual professional, like
Oh,
somebody to
I
speak
I
to.
did too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah,
Oh yeah.
so
Went through that whole thing.
we both actually had ourselves checked, because, and I think
Yeah.
that's actually a sign that you're not losing it, like, because
Mhm.
I wanted, and I knew I was a good student, all of that was going fine, like,
Mhm.
and I just wanted to know what is really going on. And this beautiful man, he was an ex-hypnotherapist, so I was very lucky to find how do you call them in English,
A psychologist?
yes, who was
Uh-huh.
an ex-hypnotherapist. So he had
Oh.
a beautiful history of the more alternative
Mm.
storylines, and he understood.
Wonderful.
Yeah, he understood
Mhm.
much more than I could have ever dreamt of my stories.
Wow.
So,
Mm.
and this guy helped me integrate what I thought was coming from the outside and was, well, I don't want to say attacking, but it was invasive somehow.
Mhm.
And he helped me understand that it was a part of me. And as I understand it now, the visitations, 9 out of 10 times, it's another version of you. It's a parallel self. It's not some
Mhm.
unknown, far away from you being that has nothing to do with you and suddenly goes into your house. Oh, let's take,
Right.
like,
Right.
walk into this house randomly.
Right. There's nothing
Doesn't
random
work that
about it.
way. No,
No, it
exactly.
doesn't.
It's
That's
beautifully
interesting.
set up, and there's so much
Yeah.
meaning into every detail of it. And when I started
Mhm.
to react differently to the visitations, they instantly showed me a different face. They really changed. The energy of it
Mm.
changed tremendously. The
Interesting.
messages became much more transparent for me. And like you, I have now a strong, open connection with my closest guide are you?
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, when I had myself evaluated, it's because I had so much PTSD and anxiety at that time from the visits of the Gray, and
Uh-huh.
Grays, and that's when I was still exploring all this. So I was so anxious that I had a little daycare out of my home at the time, and I
Okay.
had to watch little kids, and I just felt like I was scared all the time,
Uh,
everything just anxious and having breakthrough anxiety. And I don't have that at all anymore. But back then I did. And so I went and saw a psychiatric nurse practitioner
yeah.
who, of course, wanted to put me on medication, which was fine. At that point, I was okay with
Okay.
medication,
Okay.
whatever, Now I don't need anything like that. But at the time I did. And she had specialized for in this field for she was like 56 years old when I saw her, so she'd probably been practicing psychiatric medicine for 35 years. And she said that I had severe post-traumatic stress syndrome, as if I was in a war.
Uh-huh.
So she said, "What trauma has happened to you? That, are you a victim of sex abuse? Were you in the Gulf War or something? Were you in the military?" And I said, "No." No, and I had to open up to her about what happened, and it was really scary for me to do that because I thought she's going to think I'm crazy.
Uh-huh.
Well, she didn't. She said, "You really do have trauma from this situation." She says, "I don't know anything about the abduction phenomena,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm willing to look into this and be
Mm-hmm.
open from what you're saying." She says, "You don't have schizophrenia, you don't have this, this, and this. So therefore something did happen to you." So I got so much validation, from
Oh.
having a professional tell me that it wasn't something psychological or mental, a problem that way. It was fear from trying to deal and cope with what was happening. So
Yeah.
when we
Yeah.
get that validation, sometimes we need that so that we can just make peace with everything and then try to integrate it more and figure out
Yeah.
what's going on. So
Yeah.
it's great that we both had experiences getting that, even though it was in two different ways. Mine was the traditional Western, medical way, but still it led me down the path that I needed to go to be okay with everything. So,
Yeah. 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 After I saw that man, I was really good. Like it hit home very easy. The
hmm
information when I understood I can work with this. Um, Everything changed tremendously. And a year after finishing that, like we only spoke for maybe 6 months or so every once in a while. And then I was back on my own. I'm like, fine, I can get it. And all the nightmares experiences or the fear-based experiences, they stopped. And a year later, I saw my first UFO, and it was all of
oh,
a sudden there were like ETs everywhere in my dreams, and I'm like, what
hmm
is going on? And I wasn't into science fiction because I'm such a total empath, so I avoided everything that had violence in it, and most science fiction has violence in it.
I don't watch
So
movies either, hardly anything. I just can't. I
So
know.
yeah, I was where are these coming from? All these beings, and
hmm
that's where I started to slowly but surely understand that whatever was showing up in my room, I always knew it wasn't human, but I never knew what was it then. So because
Right.
you saw the grays in their own authentic form. You saw them as
hmm
they are. And that is magnificent for me. I'm like, wow, that's amazing.
hmm
Because
hmm
for me, they dressed up most of the time as
hmm
animals. They, they,
Oh,
they wore costumes.
oh,
And
interesting.
it was, I think we agreed to that would work for me to gain my trust. And it did.
Yeah, they
And
do that a lot for children. I've heard that before with
it
kids.
still
They'll do that.
does. Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
say. And then later, when I was ready for it, they warped into humanoid. But the beings that showed themselves to me first in their full shape were the hybrids. So they were already not the Greys themselves. So
Mm-hmm.
that's interesting. I know the Greys were in the background in the beginning
Mm-hmm.
of the hybridization process that I was in as
Mm-hmm.
well. But right now, it has shifted much more to the new hybridization project, the one with the hybrid children that are being created now,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Yeah.
different. It's very different. And the Greys are often not even involved anymore.
Right. Yeah. They told me back in that time around 1992, 1993 that that there was going to be a change this was before anybody knew about New Age stuff or the fifth dimension. And I had this visitation from a hybrid child that she appeared in my room one night, and she says, "Your fourth dimensional world is going to merge with our fifth dimensional world." And she held up her hands like that. And I said, "What does that mean?" I mean, this was back in 1993. I had no idea what she was talking about. And she said, she started showing me images of the world changing to where there would be more UFO sightings. So she showed me all these UFOs coming and starting to become visible to more and more people. She showed me that the spirit realm was going to kind of merge with the physical realm so that people would be able to have conversations with their lost loved ones who have crossed
Yeah.
over, that the
Yes.
spirit realm would, the veil would thin. And she showed me that there would be more love and not as much fear on the planet. And she showed me a person, a man with his son. They were sitting on the couch and an earthquake happened. Because I asked her, I said, would there still be natural disasters and things like that when we enter this new fifth dimensional world? And she showed me a father holding his son, and they were rocking on the couch like an earthquake was happening, but they had no fear of it. They just felt like they
Aha.
were in harmony with everything. So she gave me
Wow.
this image. I mean, this was 25 years ago of what was coming. And she said, and our work is almost done. So she told me that back then. So when this fifth dimension merged with ours, that this would the hybrid that meant that the hybrid kids would be incarnating here and that we would be shifting to a higher plane on our evolutionary scale as humanity. And I mean, I look back on that experience, not understanding it then, but now totally understanding and seeing where we are today. And it just blows my mind that I was given this information,
Yeah.
and they have apparently finished their hybrid program, because I
Yeah.
mean, they haven't been doing anything like that with me for maybe 15 or so years at least.
Yeah. Yeah, the gray hybridization project is done, as much as I understand of that. But
Hmm.
and maybe other people think otherwise, and then of course, um,
Yeah.
it's very personal in that sense. But for me personally, I think also it seems to have ended with the grays. The original project is finished and has ended in the 5 hybrid races in that sense that
Mm-hmm.
Bashar speaks of. The Sasani being the third and the Yael being the fifth.
Oh, I see.
And
Yeah.
the other ones have remained nameless up until now, but they do appear in channelings. I do get like to see glimpses of them, and it's really interesting and beautiful and very. It's a pretty brave and um, mind-blowing story. That whole how they created themselves in a sense,
Wow.
and now it's
You,
being bridged to us with the hybrid children, indeed, and the younger ones, or actually, yeah, it's a bit weird to say younger or older because all the timelines are so incredibly liquid for them. You know, it's like when
mm-hmm.
they come here, the older ones will be in their teens, as I understand it.
Oh, wow.
The
When
ones that
they
come
make
from the
the full
ships.
contact.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh, that's fascinating. Yeah, I'm curious about that whole thing. If disclosure is going to happen from us, and more people turning to people like us that are having these clairaudient downloads and information. I mean, like for my book, for example, I know
Yeah.
that that information was given to me to share,
Yeah.
and part of the results of that is to help with disclosure, to help people understand that ET is here and contacting people on a regular basis,
Yes.
but not everyone is being contacted. So I feel like not our whole collective society isn't quite ready for an entire, because free will is honored so
Yeah.
much that we
Completely.
have to all be in agreement with ET, landing and coming here.
Yeah.
So
On some
I'm
level.
wondering about that. Like,
Yeah.
at what point will that actually really happen, or will it, or will it come through people like us
Well,
sharing,
they keep showing me because this is the kind of questions that come a lot in the Q&A, like with groups. I channel our union groups, and he explained in a similar situation that right now there's still a lot of people on this planet who are not going to see disclosure or have the
Mm.
open contact because they will choose a different planet. Since we
Mm-hmm.
are shifting and moving through billions of possible timelines all the time, they
Right.
said, well, you're still in the overlap, is what they told me and the questioner that was asking.
Huh.
So,
Huh.
and that is such a beautiful thing, right? Because you're gonna have to always keep it to yourself. If this taught me one thing, it's to be super, to keep everything full of integrity, because I cannot preach a truth other than my own. And
Right.
I will find people that resonate with that or don't. And if they
Yeah.
don't, they are creating that paradigm. And that's beautiful too, because all that is wants to explore it all.
Mm,
But apparently, we do need some kind of a majority agreement before they can land. And then there is another level of percentage of humanity agreeing before we could, for instance, join an interstellar alliance or something.
right.
But
Right.
but all of these things are in the possible future for those who resonate with it. So that's pretty
That makes
exciting.
sense. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it does seem like there's well, we know from what Bashar says too that there are we are shifting all the time into these parallel realities.
Yeah.
And part of the download that I got even before I knew who Bashar was
Mm-hmm.
was in the 7 principles of I am that were given to me in my book,
Yes.
was that we're multidimensional and that we really exist simultaneously in a timeless way in many different ways. You know, we have past lives, we have our future or higher self, which
Yeah.
is in the higher dimensions too. And
Yeah.
I think it's just a matter of connecting with that, the higher parts of ourselves, and being aware of our multidimensional layers of ourselves, so
Yes.
we can heal the old stuff when we're aware of it, and then we can, you know, use the higher information to make this a better world right here. So for me, it was
Yes.
just becoming more aware of like the totality of like who I am is what really they taught me. I think that's the
Yeah.
biggest thing that they taught me was that.
For me too. Yeah.
Me
And
too.
we both spoke about this before, that we basically lost our fear for death,
Oh yeah,
for the
yeah.
idea of dying.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just a transition from and this is such a lower density anyway material. It's like you can experience and do so much more when you're out of your body, you know?
Oh, finally. Oh.
It's like
No,
you can have instant anything when you're somewhere else, but
but on the other hand, they also did teach me, um, or I really learned to embrace life. I think
yes, and being in the now.
by
Hmm.
overcoming that fear, it doesn't mean idolize the non-physical. It's
Right.
also like, I sometimes think like, wow, look at this game where I am imagining right now that I have lived for so many years, because the past is an invention of the now, which is the funniest thing.
Hmm.
So I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm more and more constantly aware of that, which makes looking at yourself completely awkward at some point, because you're like so aware of the holographic reality of it. It's sometimes really mind
Yeah.
bending. But,
Yeah, isn't that?
and I'm looking at it, I'm like, wow, well, playing the game that I'm agreeing to play, I think I did a pretty good job.
I love that because it gives you that accountability and makes you take responsibility for your life in ways that you know, life isn't happening to you and you're never a victim. It's that, oh, I'm co-creating this experience, and you can always find the most positive thing out of anything, you
If
know,
you
when you
focus that
realize
way.
you're, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, like
It's
I told you, I think the last time we spoke, that I actually lost my credit card at some point and left it in some machine that you use for getting money out.
oh.
And I'm like on the street, and I realized that, like, oh no, I have to call my bank, I have to block it, everything like that. And I was so surprised with my low frequency in that moment of realization, that I'm like, wow, I haven't felt this dip kind of experience in a while. And I thought it was fascinating. And then I thought, looking back at that, after I called the bank, everything was fine. I was like, wow, I still get to experience that. I better really enjoy it and
Mm.
revel in it. Because
That's great.
it's still here now, but there will be a point when it's gone. And I'm just making fun of this now,
Mhm.
of course. But
That's great.
it helps lighten things up. And I
Mhm.
think step one to move out of the darker density is to just simply look at it with a more lighter attitude, as much
Yeah.
as you can. And I don't want to sound like, um, oh, that's easy, to say where I am right now, because I actually did. I still agree on believing I lived through quite some things.
Yeah.
So I can speak in that sense from experience. And that's the biggest gift life gave me. every time was opportunities to live through and beyond what I
Hmm.
thought was resistance.
Yeah, those little experiences really help you kind of realize too in the moment that, nothing happened. Like you could leave your
Mhm.
ATM card in the machine and nobody stole from you. And it's like, well, wow, how did that manifest that so that it was okay, So
How
you can
safe.
create things that
Yeah.
are, and we've had things like that. My husband has lost his wallet in a crowded fair one time where there were people everywhere and they could have just easily picked it up and kept it, but they returned it to the
Ah,
desk and
see?
he got his
Yeah.
wallet back. So I always say, thank you. We must be on the right path. The karma just, there was no bad karma that caused us to have that kind of interference. And if there ever is, to me, that's just a sign that there's something I need to look at differently,
Yeah.
or with humanity or with not to be angry and vengeful at somebody but to see what that reflects back to me that I need to
Yes.
heal or fix in me. So
Yeah.
I feel like my goal is to just always be peaceful about everything that comes along. There's a reason that's a bigger reason for it, and if I can find what that is and be good with it, then I know I've learned what I need to learn in that moment. So it's
Wow. I
it's
hold to
practice
that.
every day, though. It's practice. You have to think that way
Yeah, it doesn't
to
stop,
do it.
but it
Yeah.
gets easier.
Yeah,
It
it
gets
does.
easier
It
along the way.
does.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
so happy to hear this from you. It really sounds like, so just to round this off because we're a little like tight on time right now, but we'll get to another subject in another video.
Sure.
But just to round this off, do you feel that your optimism, the way you just spoke, that also stems from your experiences with them, with the multidimensional beings that you interact with?
Yeah. Well, in order for me to have the contact with Melody and to be able to channel her, I know that my DNA was manipulated
Mm-hmm.
somehow, or my frequency was manipulated for about 5 years straight. They would come in. I don't know. I think they were the Greys, or they were kind of a hybrid group. I couldn't really see them. They were sort of
Mm.
energetic, but
Mm-hmm.
they were also physical. They were sort of in between,
Yeah.
and they would do these blasts of energy that would come in through the crown, and I would feel this pulsating whoosh. I could hear
Yep.
it in my ears and I could see in the backs of like my eyes would turn white. You'd see the pressure behind your eyes as this energy was coming in, so it was very physical.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd get these blasts of energy and tingles, and I didn't know what it was. They never explained to me at the time what they're doing, which was so frustrating. But later I find out what it is. And my vibration was changing from that. So I started to become very sensitive to different foods and
Uh-huh.
basically all medications. Anything that used to work for me in the past did the opposite to me. I got very sick from even things like Advil or
Uh-huh.
the GMO soybean oils. I'm completely allergic to now. Can't eat any processed food with that in it. Everything started to change after I had those blasts
Right.
of
Right.
energy. After that, I started to be able to hear melody. I got the downloads from my book. My vibration got higher. I was able to perceive things kind of in the way we were talking about, where everything happens for a reason. I could be at peace more with things and
Yeah.
not freak out, but to be more of an observer and be in the now with everything and to understand
Yeah.
what's really happening now. Am I really in crisis or am I okay right now?
Yeah.
And we're always okay right now. We're
Yeah.
never we're never not present. If we focus on that, we're always okay. So um, that's kind of how it led, to, because you asked that question earlier, and I kind of forgot about that middle part that was happening in there with the energy blast
Yeah.
that I was getting.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Upgrades or downloads or
Upgrades. Yeah, yeah, up and down.
yeah, it's going
Right.
all over the place.
Yeah, I
But
know.
yeah,
Sometimes.
it's but I agree. If you're fully here and now, even if you're okay, of course you can experience not being in an okay place, and then at least you can experience or realize that you would prefer to be in a different situation, and that's an okay observation. But
Hmm.
when you just bring yourself to the here and now, at least you get to choose. You will, or you might remember that you get to choose how you want to respond from what angle,
Hmm. Right.
and you can find yourself in a position that you rather not be in with a lot of drama and screaming and anger and frustration. Or
Mhm.
you could just see, okay, I really don't want to be here right now. What can I do to shift it?
Mhm.
And that's taking your power back. And
Yeah, that's great.
that's what I also really learned, to just, okay, this is what it is, and then now what?
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
pausing is really important, really making
Yes.
time for yourself and saying no sometimes to
Oh yeah.
the idea that, you have to be somewhere at a certain time. Maybe if it doesn't feel good to you, it's okay
Yeah.
to say no and just go within
Exactly.
and take a nature walk instead, because that always helps
Yes.
me get regrounded again to that.
Yeah, because we're so raised to please others and to say yes always to every single
Mhm.
request. My
Yeah.
God, it's really
Yeah. It's overwhelming. Yeah.
it's a big one to tackle, but it's so important that you learn to choose really what really resonates with me and to respectfully communicate to another
Yeah.
person, you know? I
Mhm.
love you. It doesn't mean I don't love you, but I just don't resonate with what you're proposing right now. So it's
Right.
just,
Right.
you know?
That's
Yeah.
exactly. It's very important. Yeah. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you can just get all, kind of bogged down and not be in your true and highest truth or your highest self. And
Yeah.
Bashar even says that, follow your highest excitement and just keep doing that again and again. And
Yes.
that advice is very, very well accepted. That's what I try to practice too.
Yeah, for me as well. Yeah, and if we
Yeah.
don't, we will probably feel the intensified messages that that's not working, which is your own higher self, of course, guiding you, first of all.
Right. Yes, you'll
But
run into brick walls basically if you kind of go the other way. That's what happens to me.
yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
learned too. The hard way, but it's also the
Uh,
perfect way.
yeah, it is. When one door shuts, there's another one open. You just got to walk through
Always.
it.
Exactly. Yes, you just gotta
Yeah,
look behind you and actually see it there.
exactly.
I'm so happy
You
to
know,
have shared with you in this video, Kendra.
thank you. It's so good to be on your show. I appreciate being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And well, I see you again in the next, and we'll talk some more about your book because there's so much still to speak about.
Thank you. I'll see you next time.
Thank you. For you all beautiful viewers, check the links below to find Kendra's book, what the name is, and where you can get it if you're interested. And definitely stay tuned for all the other videos that we're still about to make. Bye, much love.
Bye-bye.